Hi again. Welcome to the next video about altitude flying. If you didn't watch my previous video, I just suggested you start there, and this video just will be the next step from there. So let's start. As I told you, the two main things people like students are struggling with during the flight training is pitch and power. We talked about it, and the next thing is altitude flying. Especially during IFOF training, I found out students are doing a lot of stupid things. They're just not remembering to set flaps or to do a briefing, read checklist, and so on. But the root cause, most probably, is they're just overloaded. They don't have the capacity. They know that they have to do a checklist or that they have to set the flaps, but just they're forgetting about it. The brain is shutting down and just reducing the capacity to the main things. So what I try to find out is how to gain more capacity, how to reduce the workload of just simply flying the aircraft. And it's most probably you will reduce your workload immense by just learning to fly the aircraft by attitude. What this means is, what we all learned during training is you have to scan through your instruments. Or let's say you're flying VFI, you still scan all your instruments and you look out, you watch out, and so on. And what a lot of people and pilots are doing now, they're just scanning back and forth and down and to all these places and looking at the airspeed and altitude and at your heading. But they are not aware of that these factors are just the result of what you are flying with your attitude, what you are flying. So how you position your airplane in the air will give these results. So now they're just watching the results and correcting while watching the results, and that will never work because you're not watching what you're doing. So what you need to do is watch your attitude. Yeah, even in real life, but especially during flying. Watch your attitude. It means, let's say you pitch is at 2.5 degrees. You're flying steady altitude, flying a steady speed on a steady heading. So what you do now is you just remember what pitch you're flying. And here you have your bank indicators. As long as you maintain the same pitch and the same bank, and you have smooth air, you most probably will just keep everything where it is. Let's assume you're just now you're reading a checklist. So your head is down, you're reading, you're watching something else. Then you look up and you see your airspeed is rising, your altitude is decreasing, which means, as we learned before, most probably you pitch the aircraft down. You pitch down, increase airspeed, and you lose altitude because you convert your altitude into airspeed. And instead of now panic and watch your airspeed, watch your altitude while changing your attitude without watching the attitude, you simply pitch back to the same pitch wheel that you had before, and immediately you will stabilize your airspeed and you will stabilize your altitude. And now you can, if you lost some altitude, regain it. Yeah, but you just watch this part instead of this. Let's say you are your intention now is to reduce your airspeed. What you're doing, as we said before, reduce the throttle. The airplane wants to descend, but you just start to pitch the aircraft up in order to decrease the airspeed but maintain the altitude. And again, don't look at your results. Look at the cause. What's your attitude indicator? So you know while you're reducing airspeed, slowly your pitch needs to go up. So you just watch your pitch up, pitch up, and then sometimes in between you just watch if you're pitching up correctly. If the altitude is decreasing, you just look back, pitch up more. Yeah. The airspeed is at this moment not the most important thing, because you just want to reduce your airspeed while flying straight and level. So you pitch accordingly in order to maintain your altitude. But it's really important, always when you are changing your attitude, watch the attitude. Don't watch some of the results on the left or the right or down. Okay, good. Now let's see at another example. As we talked about before, let's say you want to climb to another altitude. And let's assume you're flying a small aircraft like a Skylane or a Piper 28. You're flying an altitude, you're flying an airspeed, and now you want to climb. What you're doing, you add power, which means you add altitude. The aircraft on itself starts to pitch up, and as I told you before, it most probably, it depends on how rapidly and how much power you add, most probably will overreact. So it will pitch up too much. The airspeed will go down, then it will start to pitch down, the airspeed will go up, and so on. So what you can do to avoid all this, you add power, watch the aircraft, the attitude going up, and then you just, at some point, you just stop it there. You just grab the controls for a millisecond and just stop it, and then you might be on the correct pitch, or you might at least have reduced the oscillating to a smaller amount, and you just help the aircraft to fastly find the correct attitude. Add power, the aircraft pitches up, and then you just stop it for a second, and then you just find out where the airplane wants to stay without you touching anything. Let's say we are now at this pitch, and now you are climbing while flying 100 knots. As we know, all the smaller aircrafts, we don't have excessive energy, so what we are doing is we are giving it more or less full throttle, and we are flying with a fixed climb airspeed. Let's say you now want to climb with the 80 knots. What you're doing now, you fly 100 knots, you want to fly 80 knots. What do you need to do? You need to pitch up. So stop watching at the airspeed, watch the pitch the aircraft maybe 1 or 2 degrees up, and then hold it there. Don't move anything, hold it, and now watch at your results. What happened? Let's say your airspeed dropped to 90 knots. It's better, but it's not where you want to be. So what you're doing, you're pitching even more up. So you watch your attitude, you pitch up, keep it there, keep it steady, watch your airspeed. You do this until you are established at 80 knots. So change your pitch while watching the pitch, then keep it there, look at your results. Then if you need to correct, back to the pitch, adjust, keep it there until you are where you want to be. And now the last thing to do is just trim your airplane to the 80 knots, and you can just relax, and the aircraft is doing everything on itself, and you have capacity to do something else. Another thing I want to go through with you is how to fly turn by using the attitude indicator. And before we do this, you need to understand that every airplane will lose altitude or start to pitch down while banking. And this is simply because while you're flying straight and level, you have all the lift available to keep you in the air. the moment you start to bank the aircraft, some of the lift will go the way you want to turn in order to turn the airplane around. So you will not have 100% of lift available to keep you in the air, and now the trim will start to work and keeps the airspeed steady while you're losing altitude. The more bank you're applying, the more rapidly your airplane will start to pitch down. On the other hand, when you're coming back with wings level, suddenly all the lift is available and your airplane will most probably quite rapidly start to pitch up again. And this is also a very common mistake or situation I observe during pilot training, that, let's say again, you have your let me find my pen. You have your pitch attitude right there. You're flying with a steady 100 knots at your given altitude, and now you start to bank your aircraft. Suddenly the pitch is going down. We are just, let's say, coming down here. The airspeed is going up because usually the aircraft overreacts, the trim overreacts, and the altitude is going down. And now we have to correct. So the student is then pulling the nose up again, and now he is just working with something that he doesn't need to work about it. He doesn't need to work with this. So we're just wasting time for something that we can avoid in the first place. As long as you know that every airplane, when you start to bank, will pitch down, as long as you don't have any stability programs systems like an Airbus, it will pitch down. So what you can do to prevent it is, imagine yourself, you're using a nail or something, imaginary nail, you just fixating the pitch where it is right now, and now you're pivoting around this pitch attitude. Here you have your bank indicators. Let's say you want to fly a 20-degree bank turn. So what you're doing, you're banking until you reached your 20 degrees. You keep this attitude, and in between you just watch your altitude and your airspeed. And the more bank you have, the more you need to do something. You are losing lift, and this means you can either, because you're losing lift, you can add power. It means you will then keep the altitude and you will keep the airspeed. Or if you're doing small bank turns, you can, with intention, use some airspeed to maintain the altitude. That means usually if you have a 20 or 30 degree bank turn, you start to turn, you keep the attitude or the pitch, you slowly move towards the bank that you want, and then most likely you will not be able to maintain the altitude and maintain the airspeed at the same time without adding some energy or pitching up. So you might, as I said, add some energy, add some power, or you with intention pitch up a small amount in order to trade some airspeed for altitude. So you're now maybe flying a 95 knots, you're having a slightly higher pitch than before, but you're maintaining altitude. But you will never allow the airplane to pitch down while turning into a turn. Keep the nail here, pivot around it, never let the airplane pitch down. Most probably you need to pitch a little bit up, trade some airspeed to maintain your altitude. When you fly in steep turn, 45 or 60 degrees, this thing will be more excessive. You need much more power, or you need really to convert some airspeed into altitude. So in this case, if you have so much bank, usually what we're doing again, you are keeping your attitude where it is, start to bank, never let the attitude, the pitch go down, and then start to add some power. And now you just find the bank that you want to have, and you just simply find out at what pitch do I need to keep the airplane in order to stay at my altitude and stay at my airspeed. And once you found out which pitch you need, you just keep that, a steady picture. You have a steady attitude and a steady bank. And as long as you keep this steady, everything else will be steady. And you won't have this, you're not flying like this, you're just flying a straight thing all around. And then it's important, as I said, the moment you are leveling off the airplane, all the lift will be back. And now the airplane really wants to pitch up. What you do in this moment, let's say you just flew a 30 or 20 degree banked turn, you just wings level at the same time, because you might have pitched a little bit up, you just press the airplane back to the pitch that you had before. If you had a specific pitch in level flight and you moved away from it, just go back to where you were. Just pitch to the same amount and everything else will be there. If you added some power in case of the steep turn, you pitch, so you're doing it simultaneously. While you are getting back to wings level, you pitch the airplane rapidly back to the place where it were before, while reducing the power where it were before. So if you had the starting point with a given altitude, given power and given pitch, just go back to it instead of finding out again what to do. And at the end you will be at the same values. So why not just remember them and go back to them? Okay, so you're using mainly your attitude indicator to fly turn. Fly to the bank, yeah, bank towards the bank value that you want to have, and then watch work with your attitude. Simple as that. So now let's talk about how to fly an approach and how to use the different tools you have to fly the approach. And it depends on what kind of airplane you're flying actually. So there are a lot of discussions between pilots again about pitch and power. Flying an approach, are you using power for speed or power for altitude? Let's now say, I just remove all this. You're flying, you want to fly this approach path, this is your runway, and while you're flying down, you have your airspeed, and now you find out that you need to increase your rate of descent. What you usually do is reduce your power, and the airplane will increase rate of descent. When back on your approach path, you just give it a little bit throttle back, because if you don't, you will just be below the glide path. And the same for speed. If you need more speed, you pitch more down or pitch more up, yeah, as we talked about. The problem with this is there's a delay in this, and when you're flying really big airplane like a Boeing or an Airbus, usually what you're doing is, while flying an approach, you're just using it the other way around. It means while you're flying an approach, you're using power for airspeed and pitch for glide path. And what you're simply doing is, it is still the same physics. Means if you're pitching your airplane down, you will accelerate. If you pitch up, you will decelerate. But you will also increase your rate of descent or decrease rate of descent, and it will be quite responsive. So once you have figured out a roundabout power setting, and you are roundabout at the airspeed you want to be, what you're doing usually when flying these bigger airplanes, if you see your glide path is going down, you simply pitch a little bit down. You accept that you will gain some knots of airspeed, but you will also immediately correct for the glide path. And if you now see that you, let's say you're flying on the glide slope, but you have too much airspeed, you simply know there's too much energy in my airplane. I need to reduce the energy. And the first thing I do now is I reduce the power. But I need to be aware of, in the moment I reduce the power, my airplane wants to go down to keep the airspeed. So I need to be alert and at the same time start to pull the stick a little bit backwards and trim the airplane again in order to keep my glide path. But the important thing is, it is still, you still pitch for airspeed and you use power for altitude, but you're just using it the other way around. You're using the side effects of it because you have a faster response. Okay, so the physics are not changing, but you're using it the other way around. Okay, I hope I could help you a little bit with these two videos about pitch, power and attitude. And one thing I forgot to mention is the thing about attitude flying. It's the same in during VFR flying. You might heard your instructor telling you, look out, look outside, watch the horizon. And that's nothing else than look at the artificial horizon. So you're flying your aircraft 90-95% by just watching how you position it in the air. What is the attitude of the aircraft? How I'm positioning my airplane. And if you have the big horizon outside, use the big horizon. If you know you're flying too fast, look outside and get the nose a little bit up, and then look inside at your speed indicator and see if you are where you want to be. If not, stop there, look outside, change it again. Flying a turn, look outside, start to turn. Don't let the nose drop down. So okay, it's the attitude. It's the same, VFR, IFR, all the same. But you need to keep your, there are my pen. You need to keep your aircraft under control in order to have all the instruments under control. Don't watch the instruments and do something with your airplane without watching it. Grab your airplane, take control, and tell the instruments what you want to see there. Okay? You're the boss. And as long as you get that and you know how to deal with these energy shifts with pitch and power and altitude and speed, how you move your energy around, it's so simple. Then you understand how to fly an airplane and you understand how to reduce your workload. You know what's coming. You're not surprised by something that will happen anyway. Okay? If you change something, you need to know what will happen. You need to know what things are going wrong, what the oscillation. Just stop it. If you reduce power, the airplane will go down. If you start to bang, the pitch will go down. As long as you know this, you can already prevent it before it happens. And you've gained a lot of seconds during your flying, which you can use for remembering to set flaps, to read checklists, and so on. Okay? Thanks for watching, and maybe to the next video. Bye bye.